FBI Director Wray and Secretary of Homeland Security Mayorkas hauled in front of Congress to answer some questions, and we know how much they hate that. And there's a couple good exchanges here we'll pounce through. The first is Christopher Wray making his opening statement, and then we'll jump into some Congress people who are asking him some questions, one in particular about ghost buses that apparently had FBI agents, informants, CHSs, who knows, show up at the Capitol on January 6th. And so we'll see if we get any answers about any of this, but the evidence continues to come out. This is what it sounded like when Wray, FBI director, showed up to testify.
Members of the committee, it's been more than 5 weeks since Hamas terrorists carried out their brutal attacks against innocent Israelis, dozens of American citizens, and others from around the world. And our collective efforts remain on supporting our partners overseas and seeking the safe return of the hostages. But this hearing, focused on threats to our homeland, is well-timed given the dangerous implications the fluid situation in the Middle East has for our homeland security. In a year where the terrorism threat was already elevated, the ongoing war in the Middle East has raised the threat of an attack against Americans in the United States to a whole nother level.
Okay.
Since October 7th, we've seen a rogues gallery of foreign terrorist organizations call for attacks against Americans and our allies. Hezbollah expressed its support and praise for Hamas and threatened to attack U.S. interests in the Middle East. Al-Qaeda issued its most specific call to attack the United States in the past 5 years. Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula called on jihadists to attack Americans and Jewish people everywhere. ISIS urged its followers to target Jewish communities in the United States and Europe. Given those calls for action, our most immediate concern is that individuals or small groups will draw twisted inspiration from the events in the Middle East to carry out attacks here at home. That includes homegrown violent extremists inspired by a foreign terrorist organization and domestic violent extremists targeting Jewish Americans or other faith communities like Muslim Americans. Across the country, the FBI has been aggressively countering violence by extremists, citing the ongoing conflict as inspiration. In Houston, we arrested a guy who'd been studying bomb making and posted about killing Jewish people. Outside Chicago, we've got a federal hate crime investigation into the killing of a 6-year-old Muslim boy. At Cornell University, we arrested a man who threatened to kill members of that university's Jewish community. And in Los Angeles, we arrested a man for threatening the CEO and other members of the Anti-Defamation League.
All right, so we'll pick up. You can see he's going to go on and on and on. We're going to have a lot of different threats that he's going to articulate for us. And so we're going to fast forward and we're going to jump into Dan Bishop and see what Dan had to say about some of this when he got the mic. Dan Bishop is here.
The chairman of the Oversight Subcommittee, Mr. Bishop from North Carolina, for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I listened to your opening statements, I'm floored by the fact that I perceive a dramatic shift in the positions of each of you from the hearing that from the testimony that you gave and the way you answered questions just last November. Director Abizaid, I want to begin with you. Last time I asked you this, Director Abizaid, does the National Counterterrorism Center assess a significant threat from the historic level of uncontrolled crossing at the southern border? And your answer was, we don't, actually. The Judiciary Committee has released a document that says there are confirmed 1.7 million gotaways. Maybe one of you has a better number than that. Millions have been processed and released to the extent that the mayor of New York, Eric Adams, says that New York City is being destroyed. All you are aware of those things. Director Abizaid, do you continue to maintain that there is no material risk of organized terrorism from this massive infiltration, both of people minimally encountered and almost 2 million people neither encountered or vetted whatsoever?
I appreciate the question, and we absolutely recognize the kind of vulnerabilities that are associated with border security across all of our ports of entry, across southwest border and otherwise. But I would maintain, and I talk to my analysts about this on a regular basis, that as we look at the global terrorism environment, as we look at foreign terrorist organizations' intentions to try and seed operatives into the United States, we don't have indications that are credible or corroborated that those terrorist organizations are trying to do that at this time.
You are aware, are you not, ma'am? You remember I made this comment the last time. The 9/11 Commission report talked about the system blinking red. There were obvious risks. Director Wray sat next to you just a few minutes ago, and you've changed your tenor too, Director Wray, and you said that you observed that at only 20 to down the World Trade Center, among 1.7 million coming in, not interdicted by the federal government or any government. Why is that not an obvious risk to you that we could have organized terrorism? How many cells could you create of 20 people?
Sir, if I may, I'd like to clarify. We absolutely recognize the risk. In fact, if you look at the kind of counterterrorism enterprise that we've built that's focused on collecting overseas, that's focused on border security, that's focused on screening, vetting, watch listing individuals and terrorist identities, it's absolutely a risk that we understand and a vulnerability that we work very hard over the last 20 years to shore up. So my comments relate to the intelligence about foreign terrorist plans and intentions.
You've deployed that.
It is not a statement about what risk we think we have. I'll
stop you and reclaim my time because you shouldn't be going on. That seems to me even more astonishing because you've sat in this administration almost since its beginning alongside Secretary Mayorkas. Elective policies have been pursued, uncontrolled immigration, processing millions of people, Border Patrol, CBP and Border Patrol, in those agencies so that this unbelievably and unprecedented, historically unprecedented number of gotaways could come through. You've given it succor. You've all permitted it to happen and said nothing publicly. You now acknowledge to be a material risk. And it seems to me we're going to see the manifestation of that risk.
We'll see. Let's see what he says to Mayorkas.
Secretary Mayorkas, in your testimony, both written and oral today, you said the world has changed since Hamas's attack in October. What's changed about Hamas?
Hamas has been and continues to be a terrorist organization.
Exactly.
We're going to see next is an exchange from GOP Representative Higgins. And Higgins brought in a very interesting point talking about ghost buses. And so I wanted to share this, and we can go through this one together. This was a similar exchange. He runs out of time and gets cut off. He says here in questioning to Director Wray, did you send ghost buses to the Capitol building on January 6th?
Director Wray. Last year, you might recall, sir, our exchange regarding the FBI's involvement on January 6th and prior. I'm happy to jog your memory to quote, according to the record, I asked you, did you have confidential human sources dressed as Trump supporters positioned inside the Capitol on January 6th prior to the doors being opened? You responded, I quote, again, I have to be very careful of what I say. To which I said, it should be a no. Can you not tell the American people no? We did not have confidential human sources dressed as Trump supporters positioned inside the Capitol on January 6th. A year has passed. We sit here again a year later. We the people.
No answer.
Still do not have a definitive answer from you or anyone else in the Biden administration regarding the FBI presence and participation in the months leading up to the November election and in the weeks and days prior to January 6th and on January 6th here in D.C. We can't get a straight answer, although we have a tremendous amount of evidence harvested and reviewed over the course of the last year, which you will see. In September, Stephen D'Artano, formerly in charge of the FBI's field office in Washington, D.C., testified to the House Judiciary Committee that he was aware the FBI informants would attend the Stop the Steal rally thrown on January 6th. You confirmed that the FBI had confidential human sources at the Stop the Steal rally on January 6th here in D.C., sir?
We know they did from the Proud Boys cases.
Congressman, as we've discussed before, I'm not going to get into where we have or have not used confidential human sources. But what I can tell you, you asked for a definitive
answer. We'll move on. It's my time. You said no, you're not going to answer.
DOJ.
That's cool. We're watching.
Mr. Chairman, may I answer?
Your moment will come. This is my time. Earlier this year, an FBI informant who is reported to have, under oath, marched to the U.S. Capitol with fellow Proud Boys members on January 6th, close quote.
Yeah, they picked Enrique Tarrio.
He said he was communicating with his FBI handler while people were entering the U.S. Capitol. Can you confirm that the FBI had that sort of engagement with your own agents embedded into the crowd on January 6th?
If you are asking whether the violence at the Capitol on January 6th was part of some operation orchestrated by FBI sources and or agents, the answer is emphatically
You're saying
not.
no?
No.
You're saying no?
Not violence orchestrated by FBI sources or agents.
Are you familiar with you know what a ghost vehicle is? Director of the FBI certainly should. You know what a ghost bus is?
A ghost bus?
Ghost bus.
I'm not sure I've used that term before.
Okay.
Not sure
It's
he's
pretty
used it, but
common
are you
in
familiar with it?
law enforcement. It's a vehicle that's used for secret purposes. It's painted over. These two buses in the middle here, they were the first to arrive at Union Station on January 6th, 0500. I have all this evidence. I'm showing you a tip of this iceberg.
Mr. Chairman.
These two buses
Mr.
are
Chairman.
painted completely white.
Point of order.
Point of order. Sure.
Just run over the time.
I understand, but you'll recall that Ms. Jackson Lee's been allowed to go 2 minutes before. I've been very fair in letting people finish their questioning throughout my tenure as chairman, and I'll continue to be fair on that regard.
Ran out of time.
But I will make a note to the members, if you could stay as close within your time as possible. We have a lot of people that want to ask these gentlemen questions. So with that, the gentleman yields. But your point, I've been very fair in this, Mr. Ivey, with everybody on this side of the aisle just as much.
I don't think I accused you of being unfair, Mr. Chairman.
You're making a point. Okay, thank you. I now recognize Mr.
May I
Gray.
close this statement, Mr. Chairman?
No, I think your time is expired, Mr.
I note that other members across the aisle have been granted time, and I object to my question being closed. This is a very significant hearing, Mr. Chairman.
It is.
And these
Look at those
buses are
buses.
nefarious in nature and were
right.
filled with FBI informants dressed as Trump supporters and deployed onto our Capitol on January 6th. Your day is coming, Mr. Wray.
Mr. Higgins. I now recognize.
Your day is coming, Mr. Wray, from Congress. They know about the buses. They know about all the feds that were there. And there were a lot of feds that were there, okay? We had 50 so-called Trump supporters or undercover informants that were identified by the Proud Boys defense. I think there were 8 of them that they stipulated to, that they even admitted, meaning the government admitted, were there. And that went into the record on the Proud Boys case. But there were FBI agents, there were HSI agents, Homeland Security Investigations agents that were also there. So Mayorkas was sitting in the same room between the FBI, the DOJ, and DHS and HSI, the subcomponent. They were there in spades. And so we saw what happened in Congress. Of course, my friends, we'll see what happens as more evidence comes to the forefront. We'll see where these buses came from, who was on the buses, as we continue to cover. Thank you for subscribing, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one.